Let's give a hearty welcome, please, to the panel. From our left to the right, I have here Rene Sluijter from Abbott, fantastic, distinguished career, number of companies. On his left, we have Bill Sharbaugh from the PPD, Chief Operating Officer. And they just have found a tie with a, should I say, private equity, Bill?
You did.
It's a fact, you know. And so we see what's going on. On his left is Meryl Wiernik from TEVA. You all know, the largest generic also. Fantastic company going forward. She's the Senior Director of Strategic Sourcing. And on her left is Dan Perlman, Chairman CEO of RPS, a budding, growing company going forward. These are the four people we have. I thought I keep the introduction a little short so we get the best out of this great panel here. And then we will do some exercises here for all of us to ask some questions, comments, and make it a very good learning session to draw out from each other, because we don't get these gatherings very often, and that's the part of learning in an intellectual society. So I'm going to request each of the panel members to take 3-4 minutes and tell us what's on their mind. And so we go with you, Rene, and tell us what's on your mind.
Right, thank you, Ram. My name is Rene Sluijter. I am the Global Head of Outsourcing within Abbott, and I worked there for about 1.5 years now. It's a fascinating company that I work for because it's built of people, and a number of years in a row it has been selected as one of the best companies to work for. And I'm Dutch by from birth, so I was skeptical, what is it? But in fact the reality is it is a group of people that's very driven and compassionate what they are doing. Recently I saw that also Humira, one of the leading drugs, has been selected as a drug of the year. And how come? It is, to my opinion, it's the total combination of looking what the patients want, and integrating technology and delivering really and making a difference for those patients. It is, like Ram was saying, it is the execution that makes a difference, but also the integration that makes a difference. It is the integration of technology that you, as a patient, can actually go to your pharmacist and in fact can get pre-approved right on the spot, which actually made quite a difference in the prescription of Humira. I'm responsible for outsourcing, and Abbott traditionally is not so much in outsourcing, because you also feel they have a lot of expertise themselves, and I think they do have, and it's very successful. However, in order to sustain the future, we are outsourcing more and more. And I have been responsible for many different alliances and collaborations in various capacities, where I think the outsourcing is not just trying to find the supplier or the partner, but it's more how can you integrate that supplier or the capacity and the knowledge of that groups that you add into your organization, into your own organization. And I would even try to challenge that it's much easier for us to work with a supplier than actually to integrate into our own organization. So our own organizations, large pharma, is very siloed. So we're working as hard with my team to actually integrate and collaborate internally with our, I would say, our internal suppliers and stakeholders, as well as the external. And that matchmaking thing, that's the challenge I have, and that's actually what keeps me awake at night, and that's what I'm looking forward to doing.
Thank you. Let me just mention one thing here, please note. And one size doesn't fit all. But many sponsors are silos, is that correct? Isn't it? And you want to integrate an entrepreneurial company in CROs inside the system. That is what I mean by social system. There are no computer techniques to do that. It is the people figuring it out how to do that. And in doing that, in the integration, is the purpose to do something they could not do by being alone. And that's the integrator skills to go forward. Find those, learn those, drive those to achieve the purpose you have in mind. Because one person is not going to be able to do that. You're going to require more people to do this and build a system of conversation, transparency, and so on. Because once they do this, and they do better than others, could that become a competitive advantage? And that's where you go forward. By the way, Abbott, I will come back to Rene, done a fabulous job in India. They are very well established going forward there, and they are far ahead in many, many companies in the world in building those bases in India. Let me request Bill, tell us something on your mind.
Sure. I'm Bill Sharbaugh. I'm the COO at PPD. And previous to that, I worked at Bristol Myers Squibb and Merck, total of about 17 years. So, you know, I'm at heart a big pharma guy that's now moved into a CRO. And I really think there's two solutions, two general methodologies by which we're going to confront this big problem in the pharma industry, which to Ram's talk today is really about innovation. And I think it's related to scientific innovation, and I think it's related to business model innovation. And so one would think that, hey, pharma companies are the stewards of scientific innovation, and CROs, perhaps, as suppliers, are the stewards of perhaps business model innovation. And I think to some degree that's true, but I think the lines are getting blurry, and I think this is important, and I think it's good, and I think it's useful. And let me give you a couple of examples. So at our company, a CRO, we have a group in our lab services business that is taking a variety of technologies around the discovery and development of monoclonal antibodies, and we're bringing that together, and we're talking to big pharma companies, many and smaller companies, many of you in this room, about doing that. And we're not competing with you. We're talking to you as customers about how we can do this more effectively. As you all know, biogenerics, biosimilars is big. And this is an example of us, a supplier, trying to bring forward scientific innovation. We're doing it on small molecules as well, with a majority ownership position in a company called XChem that can develop high throughput screening methodology and libraries, much like pharma does, but much more effectively, cheaply, and quickly. And I won't go into all the details, but there's an example of us, a supplier, trying to bring scientific innovation to the table to help our customers with this problem. Now, I was struck in this meeting today, or yesterday, by listening to a medical director at Pfizer talk about a virtual pharma trial. And it was for overactive bladder. And he said, hey, it doesn't work for every disease, but it works for some. And here's what I've been doing. I've been fighting against the machine in pharma to bring this new, innovative business model, this idea, you know, to leadership and get approval to do it. And that is an example of us reversing roles. There's a scientist thinking about business model innovation, and I don't know what happened in that, but I hope he came to some of his suppliers, like the CROs, to ask for some help about how to do that, because that is a sweet spot for us. But I think the answer is scientific innovation and business model innovation, and I think it's a joint problem. It's pharma's problem, and it's us, the CROs, the suppliers' problem, and we're only going to solve it by working together.
Please note two phrases: scientific innovation and business model innovation. How many of you heard the name Cisco? Cisco. It's a routine in that company, a routine developed 7 years ago. A gentleman named Angel Garcia is in charge, outsourced supplier and all that. And here they have a formalized way to ask suppliers to come with new innovations that could change their product design. Otherwise, you are a commodity supplier. And the key idea here is, ideas can come from anywhere. Don't block them. In the case of P&G, they have 80 people. In January, they pick up 10 worldwide consumer trends. These 80 people go around the world, meet people, bring ideas. 50% of the ideas in 2009 that went into nurturing had come from outside P&G. We need to open up the mind and say, let's find the ideas wherever they come from. Business model ideas, scientific. In manufacturing, we know this, that the execution in manufacturing influences the product design. Here, you have similar ideas that influences. So build that bridge. Get the tapping of the brains. Now, the scientific innovation, business model innovation, what we need is the social innovation of working together. And that comes from practice. Very helpful. Meryl, help us. What's in your mind?
Meryl, Wiernik, TEVA Pharmaceuticals, head of global outsourcing. As Rene mentioned, TEVA is the largest generics company in the world. 40% of it is branded. And over the last several years, we've mostly grown through acquisition. And what that means, as is very typical, is global standardization, harmonization, process harmonization across our organization has been minimal, and it's something we're building now. Developing preferred provider relationships, trying to globally standardize across the whole organization. Something we're building now, a company that's been around for 100 years. What's on my mind is, at the risk of repeating everything you've heard at the last several meetings, it really is about building communications and relationships with your suppliers, innovating together, working together on what the right processes are that will build value for both you and your suppliers. And our other challenge is, now that we've decided that as we build our preferred provider relationships and that we're going to more fully outsource just about everything that we do internally, we have project managers who are used to managing studies. And now they're going to have to learn to manage suppliers, which is a very different skill set. So how we train those project managers to be able to build relationships with our preferred suppliers and provide oversight to the suppliers without micromanaging will be a real challenge for TEVA going forward.
Project managers, I assume, are the basic integrators, because that's what they do going forward. And that's the part we standardize, go globally, figure this out, go at it. The key here is that how are you building the transparency, the discussions, the trust from various people coming in and creating this. So anybody heard of a company called IDEO? How many of you heard of that? It's a design firm in San Francisco. And when I was writing the book with Mr. Lefley, he told me that they recruited the CEO of IDEO to be the chairman of P&G's design department. Why? He has the expertise. Why? He has the expertise of building the social system. Why? He has the expertise that design matters. One of the things when Steve Jobs came back was he brought the design department of Apple right at the top, because in his mind design was very important, and design people attending those meetings simultaneously where there's a technological discussions, and creating a basketball team kind of approach where various spokes listening to the same thing at the same time. The power of simultaneous dialogue in different experts is huge in building that trust. What are you going on? And that's the kind of things Meryl's talking. Dan, help us. What's in your mind?
Thank you, Ram. First, so I know what I'm dealing with, how many people out here are from sponsors? How many people from vendors? Okay, just wanted to know the ratio of people I'm going to insult or not insult. My name's Dan Perlman, and I'm founder and CEO of RPS. One of the things that I think is coming clear to everybody here, everybody looks at next generation and that this industry is changing. This industry has changed, okay? It's beyond the changing point, okay? There is definitely a separation. I'll use two things that Ram brought up. One of the things he said is one size doesn't fit all, okay? There's a base of different models, okay, that are different for small pharma, medium pharma, and large pharma, and it always needed to be that way, okay? Unfortunately, as this industry grew, okay, and the outsourcing side from the vendor and the CRO, basically the traditional CRO was one size fit all. Outsource it to us, or outsource more of it to us, or make us preferred, or make us alliance, or make us anything, and then tomorrow morning we'll be an FSP, was not a change in the model that did that. And I think you're seeing changes in the model for that. The other thing I want to thank you for, I guess in 2000 we started using the words changing the game. And when I talked to our clinical people and went over how we were going to advertise, they looked at me and asked me what the game was. And that's always been in our advertising, but the game really, it's not a game, okay, but it's really that relationship between the sponsor and the CRO, okay? And each year we come to this meeting that says partnership, and you look at the game that was made by the different models, and you see conflicting models, which would lead not to a partnership. What has changed in the industry really is the finance side, okay? With finance and everybody now having to become more efficient, and output has to grow, cost has to go down, they need to get more money out of R&D, okay? Clinical and clinical structures have to be changed to do that. So I think the question everybody has to look in the mirror, especially if you're a sponsor and you're interviewing or looking at CROs, was the model that they set today from a plan from years ago to build it to that? Or are they just adapting it today to meet whatever you're saying so it's a sales pitch? Or is there an evolutionary model that's going on? Not only was it going on 10 years ago, 5 years ago, might be recognized today, but those who have those models will be accurate in what's going to happen 3 years from now, 5 years from now, most importantly 10 years from now, because they're building, okay? And they're building by what they know is the vision. Thank you, Ron.
Very helpful. Once again, in the outsourcing industry, other industries, nail down that model. Then you practice it, scale it up. Power of cumulative practice is like a power compound interest. So I have one of those outsourcing companies from India. They got these customers. They started at 100 million, and now they got $1 billion contracts going forward. They build the trust, they build the information, they build the model, do it again, do it again, do it again. And they begin to move now from cost, cycle time, to help the customer do the revenue side. For that, they need data analytics. Our data analytics, they build the new core capabilities to go forward what they are. So to get the best of the panel, I'm going to make a request. Please pair in twos. Just find a partner here. Take 2 minutes and generate 2 questions. So please do together, put together what 2 questions you have on your mind. And I'm allowed to use the Indian parliamentary system today. And that is, if you don't like your neighbor, feel free to move. Take a minute, please. Go together. Let's get great questions. And we'll get all the questions here. Pair in twos. What's on your mind? What's your question? No question is trivial. We're going to do that. Take a couple of minutes. Find your partner somewhere. Very quick. Take 2 minutes. And somebody pass on to me the please microphone. Let's get going.
Yeah.
And the backbenchers too, please talk. We need you. Work it through. Can I get a microphone, please? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, great questions. Eyes open. Far out questions are okay. Draw each other out. What's on your mind? Share your questions, your curiosities with your partner. Take 1 more minute, please. 1 more minute. Let's use our people present, their thinking, their viewpoints.
We know the answers.
Okay, we're going to get going. Gary, I'm going to request you to take the first question. Louder and go.
Okay.
Please listen. Here is a question.
So,
I'm going to come to spot places.
I teamed up with my partner, who's actually my wife.
Yes, please.
Who's thoroughly enjoying this. So I have a question. I had mentioned to Ron before this session that
Yeah, go ahead.
I had the privilege to work at a company called Allied Signal under the leadership of Larry Bossidy, and we learned a lot there. And then I shifted over to healthcare life sciences.
Gary, a little bit louder, just closer,
Nice.
please. Yeah.
So the question I have is, and I still haven't pinned this down, and I've been in the healthcare life sciences space now for over a decade, is why is it taking so long for the pharmaceutical life sciences industry to learn the lessons that high technology manufacturing, aerospace, automotive, and others learned starting 20 years ago? Cut through the silos, innovation is key. You know, what is it? It's just my observation, and I could be completely wrong. It seems to be taking forever.
And too slow.
And way too slow. So my question is, so why is that?
What is the cause for it? Hang on, who's going to help us? Dan, help us a bit, then I'll get you Bill.
I think there are a few reasons.
Gary.
Unfortunately, I think the #1 problem was money. They had too much of it.
Did you hear that? Too much of it. Go ahead, Dan.
The farm industry lived through where, I mean, they just threw money at anything, okay, and didn't really worry about it. And the other industries, and I think everybody knows, I don't come out of the farm industry. I actually come out of outsourcing and automotive originally. Those industries have always been, as far as I knew, okay, very tightly financially controlled. And when I got into this industry, it amazed me at how much money was being spent uselessly. So I think that's #1. #2, the outsourced vendors were an overflow. When they first, I mean, CROs came from an overflow that the industry had so much money but it didn't have capacity, overflew, so they had, really they were a duplicated event from a farm company, and that's where a lot of them grew out of. And from that, there really wasn't any innovation. There was no forced innovation. Through the multipliers of that until relatively recently, and some saw it about 5 or 7 years ago, saw that this industry was heading for a train wreck, okay, without a doubt. They were going to have patent cliffs, they were going to have finance, all of it was going to start stacking up. And there is no question, financial pressure, missing your numbers on Wall Street will make you react. Unfortunately, it's a panic, okay? And there is panic going out, there's no doubt about it, but out of that panic will come better models, okay, and efficiency, which had to come.
Bill?
Yeah, that's a simple question, and it's a very complex topic, and I certainly agree with Dan that that pharma hasn't felt enough pressure and you know, a do or die to change. They are starting to feel that now, and that's certainly a big element of it. It's a highly regulated industry, you know, which is another challenge. But let me offer what I see as some potential solutions that are emerging here. I think there's been a realization in pharma that they need the right kind of leadership, the right kind of talent in R&D, and they're trying different things and experimenting to do this. So it's very historically, traditionally been run by pure scientists, right? And I think what you're seeing now is this idea of moving general managers into scientific organizations to help them think differently and act differently to solve this problem. Conversely, I think you know, they're looking for scientific leadership to move in and give some commercial responsibility who have that skill set. So part of pharma's solution is to find leaders that have the scientific and commercial skill set together, because one of the biggest problems is they haven't been developing products that the payers want to pay for and that patients think are important. And you know, there's several reasons for that, but that's one of the biggest challenges for pharma companies, whether you're in the C-suite or running R&D, is you know, you need to be developing products that meet the needs of various stakeholders out there, customers, if you will, and they haven't been doing a good job of that. I think that's one of the solutions, and companies are starting to organize themselves in ways that do what I'm just talking about here. Bring that general management skill set and that scientific skill set together to develop better products.
Please.
Yeah, to add on what Bill was saying, the question you asked also fascinated me. And about a half a year ago, that I was involved in a development program within Abbott and went more into the production side, where they have the manufacturer. For me, a totally different world, being always in R&D and then being in the manufacturing world. The fascinating thing is that we talk about outsourcing there, but third-party management, heavy production, the production of nutrition, it's already a common good for the last 15 years. So I don't even have to look that far in other automotive industries. I can also look within our own organizations, because there you have technicians and people that understand logistics, and they design processes, and they have to improve the gross margin, and they have to do things efficient. In R&D, we feel we don't have to have processes. It's all science. We don't have to do it. Why not? Why can't we apply the same principles? I'm trying to invent outsourcing models where I think no single model will work for any situation. Look in your manufacturing. Those models are just already there. It is a collaboration, it's an interdependency. Without the suppliers, they cannot function. So I think it is the underlying thing that it's the way how we look at solutions is not the right thing in R&D.
I completely agree. One of the first things that came to my mind was that a large part of the answer is really fairly simple. Our industry was about developing molecules, and it's only really fairly recently that our industry has realized that it's not just about the science, about the tools, the process, the innovation, the having leaders who understand the business of pharma and not just the science of pharma. And I think that's been a problem for the industry until very recently.
Very important. Gary, just 3 points I want to mention to your question in that order. First one. Steve Jobs commissioned 2 academics. They're very good. And they are writing the anatomy of the decisions that were made. I know of no company that has it. We do not teach in the business schools. I can tell you that, teaching in so many schools. Number 2, the managers of scientists are different. It's a special breed. They don't get training in it. Number 3, I sat down with one of the CEOs of the sponsors the other day. I said, how many times we have gone in the R&D and sat down and overseen a decision being made? He said, never. You got it? Nobody is learning the anatomy of decision making, and academics are not going to teach you. The last point. Almost all innovations that drove the industry is not technologies. It's the entrepreneurs who picked up and put the light in it and do it. If Steve Jobs comes back, do it. Sergey Brin, Larry Page come in, do it. Netflix guys come and do it. So I tell you one, I cannot name it. I was called in 5 years ago in the 2 top pharmaceutical companies with the board to separate the CEO from the board and the company. And the major beef of the board was no output of the R&D. And therefore, that became a very difficult situation. There was a gentleman here, right? Could you take that? Go ahead, please. Yeah, louder.
Hello, Mark Eisenecker, PA Consulting, and I twinned up with John Wilson. He's from Beaufort. We found a common interest in the word you mentioned, integration. I hear you're integrating internally and externally at Abbott, and then also I hear around mergers and acquisitions. How much do you think the culture of your companies impacts upon your ability to do those integrations, and how much does it hamper that? The other side of our question was how can a small, innovative CRO engage with big pharma?
Please help us. Who's going to take that? Please go, Rene.
Yeah, let me start first with the integration and the culture. I think culture is important, but I also believe that small companies or large companies just are built up with people and individuals. And yes, there are processes in place and there are things that we have learned what is acceptable and not acceptable. But if you start looking and the way how I also treat within my teams, how are they dealing with their church or their club, and how do they solve problems themselves. So almost everybody around here, they have the skills to integrate and to do things. And if you allow that to happen, a bit entrepreneurial and you can call it empowerment, is an overloaded word, but what will stop you from doing it? When we talk with suppliers, often you talk with individuals, and we can do all kinds of assessments on how good and how bad they are, but often it is a team and it's individuals that need to have the right chemistry, and that chemistry, in my opinion, is a guarantee for integration. It is also the willingness, as you want to integrate it, to learn what the problems is and what the wins are for the other. If I understand what drives the supplier or drives my other department, if I really understand what their concerns are, I know what I can contribute to help them. I'm part of a large pharma, Abbott, very large, and small suppliers. I would say the small suppliers actually work very well because there are niche solutions to specific problems in large pharma. By definition, I don't think large pharma like to be linked up with another large supplier. You like to have that variety. I think there's a place for large and there's a place for small ones. The difficulty is get access to the right individuals and understand what differentiates you as a small supplier or partner from the large partners. My biggest problem I have when I talk to suppliers and ask them, okay, what really makes you different? What is the RPS different from the par excels? And all too often, they don't know. And maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but if they can't identify themselves what really makes them unique, how should I select?
A great question.
Yeah, I've been through a couple of integrations. I'm in the middle of one now as we speak. As many of you know, the TEVA purchased Cephalon last year, and we're trying to integrate the two companies. And what I'm finding is most companies that are integrating with another company don't really spend enough time discussing the differences in the cultures so that they can move on. Whether that's cultures in different companies or geographical differences, we don't spend enough time identifying what those differences are, figuring out how to merge them, and then moving on with the actual integration. And certainly that's a problem. From a supplier standpoint, I spend a lot of times in meetings when we're deciding to outsource a study, asking the team that's going to be making the decision, don't look at what the differences in the price is. Don't look at the differences in where they're going to recruit, which city in Russia. What are the differentiators? You know, we have this pool of suppliers. We've brought them in. What truly are the differentiators between these suppliers, and what's most important to you as you make your decision? It's not black and white.
Bill?
No, not black and white.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Look, individual companies have a certain capacity for innovation depending on their culture. So this is really important. And to Ram's point, he's written a whole book about it, and his point is it's leadership that drives that culture of innovation in a company, and those companies that do it well are more successful. I think importantly, though, the best partnerships happen when there's alignment between the cultures of the two organizations. And I certainly know, I believe that when our company is in a discussion about some kind of partnership or a long-term supplier relationship, I know that the senior leaders across the table from me, as well as myself, we're thinking about whether the cultures of our companies fit together, whether us as individual leaders can work together well, and to Ram's point, whether there is the first grain of trust between us, and that can be built upon over time. And you know, obviously, the most fulfilling relationships that I have lasted over a number of years, and I think that's true of some of the companies that we've been lucky enough to serve. You know, so it's a leadership question in my mind, whether you're on the pharma side of the table or you're on the CRO side of the table. So
let me make you two suggestions. One, there are companies outside your industry that do very effectively. Say yes to the word, I know IBM, I've heard about IBM. Got IBM? More than 30, all people integration, they have a playbook. Benchmark it, they'll love to help you. There are many others like that. You pick what they're doing. I had another company that used to make 30 acquisitions a year, integrated, fabulous job of doing this stuff. So let's go outside and do that. The second thing coming out from your discussion, should you as an industry create an institute for having effective partnerships? These are the schools you do at Wharton, at Harvard, and Stanford, you choose. Get the momentum going and say, what are some of the best plays? Your people teach in it, share the ideas, a 2-day program, figure this out to go forward. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. My name is Steve Grubin, CEO of Blinded Diagnostics, and we're an emerging company. We're an emerging company that is offering a time and cost savings in trials for clinical testing. My question's for you, Bill. How does an emerging company like ours overcome the fear from sponsors and CROs and working with a smaller company like ours and integrating our solutions?
Well, I think any company, big or small, has a certain capacity for risk-taking. And you know, a certain amount of innovation that they can subsume at one point in time. So obviously, you know, you need to do kind of a good job at selling the value proposition and the high probability of success in this new technology platform or this new business model that you're bringing forward, you know, to the point where you've you know, convinced the company to write a check, because that's what you're essentially trying to do. And you know, you have to make sure that whatever you need to propose that to a company that would perceive this technology or this business model innovation as synergistic to what they're doing already, okay, or disruptive and helping them enter a market that they aren't in now, and so you're building a new capability for them. I think that's, you know, really the two kinds of answers that make sense and get the attention of senior management.
Please, Rene.
So,
yeah, to add on that, if you look at the drug development, it's like a life cycle, and it starts also with the same entrepreneurial small business kind of thinking that the teams have. Then when they go into the maintenance mode, then things become larger and they have marketing. So the trick is, and also the challenge for me and my outsourcing team is to bring that innovation, or those small companies that have something really unique to add, and actually link them and make them with those teams that actually understand that specifics of the service that you're offering. Because I can tell you that those teams, they also don't want to be told, okay, you now go, we have 3 preferred providers, and for this you go there. No, they also like, at certain stages, different levels of service and different levels of interaction. And that's the power. My challenge is, how do you find out where those pockets are? It's almost, how do I find out where that talent is and what is the upcoming? That's my biggest information problem. And if you can help me solve that, it's much easier for us to start linking a smaller, unique organization, have some delivered to our teams, even in big pharma.
Then?
So with surely not being, with being humble, okay? I don't know everybody's background, but I've built 3 companies from 0 to, this one's $500 million now. The other ones were larger. And at some time we were small, trying to get it, talk to large. So my first advice is to seek advice from people who have done it, not the others, because they're the ones who, if they'll give you advice, will tell you how to get in there. The second advice is be laser focused on what separates you from everybody else. And that's the key to getting yourself there. And the third is to surely bring that to scale. There is no question. The model that we brought to industry 10 years ago, when we said this industry was going to go integrated, it was going to go embedded, and these things would happen, nobody would listen. Okay, 5 years ago, 1 listened, maybe 2. Now we're in 7 of the largest farm companies, and obviously we've got placards on $1.2 billion worth business signed in the 4th quarter alone of 2011, that it's being accepted. So you have to be patient, but the biggest thing, you have to be focused, and the second thing, you have to produce. Unlike the ones who are already established and can live with bad reputation, good reputation, back and forth, 1 failure and your model is dead. So that would be my advice there.
Meryl?
Yeah, and
I have to have this as the last question here, please. I'm getting the signal.
Yeah, I would also just like to add one small piece to what my colleagues have said. You need to bring data-driven examples of where you can provide value, and I would suggest you not try to sell the whole package. Take a piece. data-driven case studies where you can provide value. And once you prove that in one area, then the doors will open further.
Please go ahead, last question.
Thanks. We had a perfect duo over here, one sponsor and one vendor, and we came up with a question to the panel. We've been to many of these meetings. This one is a very good one, obviously, but the question is, how can sponsor and CROs can improve transparency, communication, and trust when everyone is under extreme financial pressure and we still are looking at the same business model, which is competitive bids? So in essence, how can we take risk and open the vicious circle of status quo?
Help us. Who's going to go? Meryl.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to build, Patrice, very good question. What I'm trying to build, I discussed that we're trying to build true preferred provider relationships in different segments of our suppliers. And our plan is that once we have the MSAs in place, there will be no more competitive bidding. There will be no more RFPs. We're going to take a look at the bucket of business and figure out how to divvy it up among the suppliers so we can focus more on the transparency, the communication, the trust, the joint innovation. You need to get that stuff out of the way. You know, the competitive bidding process takes way too much time, both on the side of the supplier and on the side of the sponsor. It's brutal for everybody. So you need to try to find a way to get that out of the way so you can focus on the business at hand. Because the more you innovate together, the more efficient you get together, the more money you save, and it's value for both.
Please, Rene.
Yeah, I would like to add that as long as we start seeing each other as competitors or not equal, a pharma, CRO, you hear the vendor, supplier, or how can I serve you? You need to do things on an equal basis. So once you start understanding that you are equal and that you have something to bring to the table, I think the whole discussions will become different. What I would like to suggest, and what we've tried, and also in different roles that I've had, is bring different suppliers of different natures together. They can be competitors. You can bring one lab together with a CRO, with an imaging, and you bring them together, and then one company said, yeah, but we also have a lab, and we also have imaging. That's not the point. I think here we have all the suppliers, get them together, and give them all the level of insight to actually deliver something that's a win for all the parties. It is that transparency, but also the willingness to share information and give that insight. Both pharma has to do it, but also the CRO, because there's a lot of, I would say, a lot of bullshitting between pharma and CRO, what the capabilities are. Be sincere, be trust, but deliver on your promise.
Then.
So yeah, so I'm going to look at this from a sponsor point of view if I was a sponsor. Because surely we have seen this competitive bidding, we've seen the RFPs, some of them have just gotten crazy. They're not going away. Procurement is heavy involved with finance, no longer clinical. So there is one key piece if I was a sponsor. It's not the CRO doing the homework, it's also the sponsor. So if you give an RFP and you say, we need this delivery and we need it at this cost, and you get an answer and it says, here's the cost. Now you have to break down into the vendor's structures to see how they're going to meet that cost and the deliverable. It's not done right now. Okay, I can tell you right now, we've seen vendors bid on things we know they couldn't do, okay, and that's where change orders come. I'll give everybody an education I got this year, which I didn't know from this industry, okay? We were blessed enough to look at other CROs to buy, okay? And in that you see their financial structures and you see their next year's structures, okay? So I'm looking over the finances and I see in the CRO, okay, not one, not two, 5. All 5 had it, and I'm told it's normal. A 25% change order line. How could you even have it? I don't know how you run a business, predict in the future, and then predict you're going to charge somebody 25%, but some of that is because they bid on things, they win them, and they literally have to change their structure. If you bid on a $90 CRA and yours cost you $89, you're going to have to get rid of CRAs and bring them in at $50. So it's going to be disruptive. Okay. or if you bring in a process and have the same problem. But we are supposed to be experts in the industry. We go in and bid on something. There should never, ever be a change order. It's not in any other industry. You've been in industry, I don't know where it would live, but it lives in this.
Rob, can I take a crack at this? I think the answer to your question is pretty simple. And trust is not granted, it's built. And it's built through joint problem solving. It's built through innovation. It's built through the creation of value. And maybe this is a small example, but you know, a lot of the central lab work, most if not all, is outsourced right now. Tremendous amount of data resident there. And you know, pharma companies matching patient data with lab data is, I think, an important area where improvements could be made. That's going to have to be done jointly between CROs, a supplier, and pharma companies. And I think it's through that kind of joint problem solving or joint solution creation where trust is built.
Build the trust, joint problem solving, practice it. Both sides here are central to the human health going forward. Thank you. Let's give a thanks to the panel, please.